Good morning, Sacramento. Thanks for joining us. Yes, you find yourself at the beginning stages of a show that we called All Things Legal. This is where curious personal injury attorneys distill topical events to the legal essence. What does that mean? Guess what? We like to read. As a matter of fact, this morning I was watching the Vuelta a España. Alberto Contador, the last race of his professional career, and reading some stories, and I had to come across something about Paul Anka and a breach of contract case, Mar-a-Lago. He's the one who's saying, I saw mommy kissing Santa Claus. And he basically says he's not giving back some money as a result of a contract issue. That's one of the things I just read this morning. I'm laying on you guys now, but I know you love the song Puppy Love, Ed, right?
No, it sounds like Paul Anka came from a broken home, catching mommy as Santa Claus. He's just acting out now.
Yeah, well, he has one song called Lonely Boy. So
there you go.
I'm just a lonely boy.
Some deep PTSD dealing with.
Yeah.
So, all right. So the moral of the story is that we like to break down topical events into the legal essence, hopefully make this hour entertaining, informative, and improving your Jeopardy game 1 minute at a time. Tim Hodson.
Good morning.
Fresh out of trial, now back in the office, making probably some more court appearances tomorrow. He's highly dedicated more to the experience of this radio show or to his law career than his radio show, which we appreciate. Edward Shady, this is where you want a shady attorney giving you some legal direction.
Good morning.
And Ed, you're going to be our man in Amsterdam because
That's right.
you're flying to Europe on Tuesday.
Yeah, I might even try to call in next week and give you guys a report right there from the Canal District.
And you know why you can't get a quarter pounder with cheese over there in Amsterdam?
No, I'm going to
Metric
get
system.
The metric system.
It's Royale with cheese.
I'm going to go for the big boy, the kilo burger, all 2.2 pounds of it.
There you go.
All right, before we break down what we're going to speak about, please remember we've got a Sunday, September 3rd game. River Cats, gates open at 4, first pitch is at 5:05. It's going to benefit Robert Paylor, 20-year-old rugby player from UC Berkeley, my alma mater. Was paralyzed, and he's fighting the good fight. He's getting some movement in his lower extremities and movement in his upper extremities. Ultimately, it's going to benefit any proceeds from the game will benefit him and Mothers Against Drunk Driving. So please, get some karma, support a local boy and Mothers Against Drunk Driving. Have a good time at the River Cats on September 3rd. You will go to rivercats.com/game link. And Mothers Against Drunk Driving, and the promo code is MADD. And that will help Robert Paylor and Mothers Against Drunk Driving. Plus, you get to watch some good baseball, have a nice day, perhaps have a beer. Just don't drive.
I'll maybe even have 2 beers while I'm there.
That's right. You're going to be there. Yeah,
that's right. I'll be up at Tito's.
Yeah, look for Edward Shady. He's promised to wear lederhosen so you can see him in the crowd.
You can't miss him anyways with the hair. So
yeah, he's
easy
got
to find.
As my son says, because I have white hair, he goes, I just look for the beacon of white.
Yep,
in the
exactly.
crowd.
Yeah, if you watch Game of Thrones, he looks like the Night King. He's got very blue eyes and white hair.
Is that? I don't watch Game of Thrones. Is that a good dude?
Well, he's basically the king of the dead, or the so.
Is he the one that threw the spear?
Yeah, he's the one who killed the dragon. Yeah.
I've heard about the spear.
Can I get a different character?
Well, yeah, you don't look like Sansa.
How about
kill dragons, man?
How about Leslie Nielsen from Airplane?
There you go.
All right. So
Surely you can't be serious.
Let's break down what we're going to talk about. We got Al Franken's a senator now. He was Stuart Smalley on Saturday Night Live. Now we got Joe Piscopo weighing in. And he says, look, if they're going to take down the statue of Columbus in Manhattan, let's put up Joe DiMaggio. So we'll talk about the legal issues there. We'll give a little historical breakdown that Christopher Columbus, to his dying day, believed he was in Japan.
He was not a good dude.
Yeah, he was in Japan. And called everybody Indians, so.
And cut their noses off and ears off.
Yeah, so he was basically ruthless, and so, there's a reason people want to probably take that down. Graduated from Berkeley, it's Indigenous Peoples Day for me. If you're in Spain, because I was in Spain during Columbus Day, and I had to replace my rental car because I was doing Ironman Barcelona, so I got this huge rental car so everybody could fit their bikes in. Everybody bailed on me. So it's just me and Tanya, my girlfriend speaking Spanish, driving all around Catalonia in this massive, delivery truck size, rental car. And it's cool because they have these beautiful thoroughfares and toll roads. And then when you get off the road, you're in a 6th century city like Girona. And you go from massive roads to tiny cobblestone in this huge van. So I finally had enough. I mean, I was kind of developing a twitch by the end of the drive. So I stayed at the Fairmont. I said, hey, will you guys just take my car back to the rental car? And they said, I'm sorry, sir, today is Columbus Day. We have nobody to tag. I go, look, man, I'll pay extra, please. Can you see I'm starting to develop the twitch? So they took it back. But Columbus Day is big in Spain. But Joe Piscopo saying, let's get rid of the Columbus statue. We'll talk about the legal issues associated with that. Kanye West basically started here in Sacramento. Just said, look, I had a mental breakdown. And Lloyd's of London, he has an insurance policy. If he has a physical malady like Dave Grohl from
Foo Fighters.
Yeah, Foo Fighters. I mean, he fell off the stage and broke his leg.
Correct.
And so at that point, it's like he's got a contract that, basically to protect against unforeseen physical or mental maladies that would allow them to ensure the income that they could have expected through a contract.
Correct.
Lloyd's of London said, hey, bro, there's some exclusions here, and you kind of didn't tell us the truth about your lifestyle, so we'll talk about that. Paul Anka, he's got a contract, $75,000 deposit, and the widow of the Inquirer magazine has a charity called Life, and Paul Anka, they decided not to have it at Mar-a-Lago based upon Donald Trump's statements about there are good people hanging out with KKK people. So they said, look, man, we can agree to disagree on that one. We just don't want to be associated with Mar-a-Lago. And Paul Anka says, hey, I saw Mommy kissing Santa Claus, and it's going to be in Monaco this year, and I'm not giving the money back. So we'll talk about breach of contract. We'll talk about how that applies to Paul Anka. Then we'll talk about Guapa Estrella, which is sexy star in Spanish. Oh, she was in a professional wrestling fight in Mexico City, went off script.
Went off what?
Went off script.
They script
That's what she said.
They script it?
Yeah. There's a couple
Breaking
things.
news.
It's not real?
Well, sexy star from Mexico City just confirmed what we weren't sure about. And she basically tore apart Rosemary as Lady Shani and Ayoka Hamada looked on in horror. So we'll talk about the legal issues associated with assumption of the risk.
How is that going to help my trivia game?
Assault and battery. It was a bloodbath in Mexico City. And the quote of the day is, there's no room for bullies in this business.
The whole business is about
I think it's
bullying.
a bunch of bullies, man. All right. So also we're going to talk a little bit about pricing insurance for autonomous vehicles. I was lucky enough to extend a gesture to my beautiful girlfriend, Tanya, of getting her a Tesla X. Beautiful car. It's got the gull wings in the back. It's an SUV. The doghouse is officially closed for remodeling for the foreseeable future as a result of this gift, I can tell you.
Really?
I think.
Well, you got to get it right. Number one, it's not a gull wing. I believe they call it a falcon wing.
Falcon?
Yes, I was paying attention when I was at the dealership.
That's right. I asked because I took Ed for a test drive, and I said, has anybody actually been banned from test driving a Tesla? He goes, yes. And I go,
I'm going to be one of them.
Number 2 is right here.
Yeah. So,
hey, that car does have acceleration. I'll give you that. I saw Chris get pushed into that back seat when I took off.
So we'll talk about the interesting thing because you get a tax rebate for this. It is made in America. It is zero emission. It's funny on Facebook. You put a picture of a Tesla on there, and then anybody. There's some people they have a visceral negative reaction to Elon Musk, no matter what. They're calling him, a hole, basically saying that it's more of a carbon footprint than anything else. Is one basically sucking money from the taxpayers. So I just took a look to see what the largest subsidies for taxpayer money is. Boeing's first.
No, assume all that to be true. It's still a cool car.
Yeah, I know. It's a great
come
car.
on.
Come on.
It's a great car.
That.
It's zero emission. It's totally vegan. In other words, the seats are not leather. And then you don't have to
care
pay
less about all that. It's actually a cool car.
Yeah, exactly. But the idea is that there are some tax rebates and there are some subsidies. But Alcoa gets $5.6 billion. Intel gets $3.8 billion. They're number 4. Then you got Ford gets $2.52 billion. Nike, believe it or not, is number 8 at $2 billion.
Nike.
And then
Nike.
Royal Dutch Shell gets $2 billion in subsidies. And then Fiat Chrysler gets over $2 billion. So Tesla's not even close.
Am I on that list?
No.
Yeah.
I want to be on that list.
So the idea is that there is a benefit that's coming forward because insurance is usually based upon where you live, your driving record, what type of car you drive. And once the car is autonomous and there's no accidents, then where you live and your driving record is going to be irrelevant. It's really just what kind of car you drive.
Right. It's
And,
interesting.
and then it's going to be based upon technology. So your insurance rates could drop to nearly nothing. If you have an electric car, you'll have no expense for gas. And if you have a solar panel like you do, Ed, you just charge it during the day, and then you pay no money at all for the transportation in terms of the energy necessary to get you from your home to the show.
There would actually be some expense associated for me because that car's acceleration rate turning, I'd be going through tires like no time.
Yeah, I mean, the Tesla X actually just beat a Lamborghini in a quarter mile, and it goes 0 to 60 in 2.6 seconds, which is my Porsche Turbo Carrera was 3.4, so it's faster than a Turbo Carrera. All right, when we come back, we'll go ahead and talk about Joe DiMaggio, Joe Piscopo, and Christopher Columbus, all on the show called All Things Legal. Stay with us. All right, we're back. This is Craig Ashton. The show is All Things Legal, personal injury attorneys distilling topical events to the legal essence. The time that you want a shady attorney giving you some legal direction. Edward Shady.
Good morning.
Tim Hodson, trial attorney extraordinaire, fast pitch baseball champion. and proud father of 2 boys, one calm and one a little bit crazy.
Yeah, the younger one is nuts.
Yeah, but he's like 2, so
He's 3. He's at the age. Yes.
They're what, a year apart, right, Tim?
2 years.
Tyler the
2
Destroyer.
years? You know, when they turn about 9 and 11, I'm going to come by for Christmas and give them some boxing gloves, and then they can run around the house beating the heck out of each other. And you can say, "Damn it, Ed!"
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah,
I'm sure that will happen. By the way,
I am raising a puppy, a standard poodle named Lucy. Turns out when I got Lucy, she was totally house trained, so that I don't have any of the craziness. That
She's still house trained.
Yeah, still house trained. Now she's getting along great with Piper the pig. Piper the Julianne pig, which really means it's a pot-bellied pig, just using some better marketing. Told me there was going to be 40 pounds. She weighs 250. She still gets in and out of the doggy door. She's actually pretty fast, and she loves her Cheerios in the morning, I can tell you. And now Lucy and Piper the pig are getting along swimmingly. All right, so let's talk about Joe Piscopo. So Joe Piscopo used to be on Saturday Night Live, and he did a really good Frank Sinatra impression.
yeah, yes, he did.
And he was probably on there without Franken, the guy who's now senator from, I think it's
Wisconsin.
Yep.
And we've got a reality show star as President of the United States.
Who's
Donald
that?
Trump.
Oh, my God.
Yeah,
you're
The
right.
Apprentice, man.
Oh,
You're
yeah.
fired.
You're fired.
So, yeah, I mean, we have a tinge, a taste, a unfortunate smoke screen coming at us like a fog of despair of idiocracy.
Yes.
Yeah, you forgot there was also Jesse Ventura was a governor,
That's
too.
right, Ventura.
And
We had Arnold
Schwarzenegger.
Schwarzenegger. No, the movie's coming true more and
And
more.
The Rock is going to run for office, I think, down in Florida.
Yeah.
If we start using Gatorade for water, we're in
Yeah.
deep trouble.
Why the plants die?
Yeah.
But it's got electrolytes.
All right. So, I mean, there's a big thing right now in regards to public money being spent to maintain statues on public property of historical figures that people really aren't familiar with, right? So, I mean, when you think it's Christopher Columbus, it depends on how the history is presented to you. Say, hey, that guy seemed pretty cool. He was basically a risk taker. Everybody thought the earth was flat at that time. And, went over to, he's Italian, went over and actually was so unbelievably persuasive that he talked the king and queen of Spain to give him money. Different countries said, hey, man, I'm going to go find a better way to get to India
Yep.
so we can get you some spices. So he arrives in Hispaniola, which is now Hispaniola. Back then it was just basically indigenously occupied island by,
Correct.
Probably the Mayans or, descendants of the Aztecs or whatever, Incas. That whole...
I liked his deal. He was
genetic
supposed to get,
grouping.
a 10% royalty?
Right.
I would call it, because he's Italian, the skim. He was going to take from all the trade coming back and forth.
Yep.
Yeah, he never admitted that he had reached any continent other than basically India, and he really thought he was in Japan at first. And to his credit, he basically never budged. Hey, man, you're all Indians, and I am in India, and this is clearly, I'm just having a difficult time finding the spices.
Well, the one thing I will give him credit for, other than just, sailing the ocean blue in 1492, he did discover and help spread barbecue.
And smallpox.
Well, yeah.
Well, because when they landed
And
there on the island,
genocide, yeah.
they were cooking food over an open flame, and they called it barbacoa.
So
That's
he went
correct.
on 4 trips, but by the 4th time, he was so hated by the Spaniards that were on Hispaniola and the native people that they basically wouldn't allow him, even during a hurricane, to actually use a harbor.
Right. You couldn't dock.
And then he spent the last part of his life going up and down Central and South America trying to find a way from the Atlantic to the Pacific. There are reports that he basically, defending his family, ordered a woman paraded naked through the streets and then had her tongue cut out for suggesting that Columbus was a lowly birth. Columbus put down a revolt by cutting people in half and then parading their dismembered bodies through the streets in an attempt to discourage further rebellions. I mean, this is not a guy that, if you know his history, yeah, let's say Jeffrey Dahmer found he thought he was in Utah, but he was actually in Oregon, but he found, he was the first one there, but he's Jeffrey Dahmer. You probably wouldn't celebrate him, right? So, because history can be compartmentalized, and I was a history major at Berkeley, until you really know the whole story, I mean, do you really want to lionize? I mean, if you love Columbus and you're Italian, man, in your private property, hey,
Do what you want.
put up a statue. I was driving to Calaveras the other day, and I saw a statue of Bob's Big Boy. It's made out of aluminum. I wouldn't actually look at it. I was thinking about putting it in the front of my house,
Your neighbors
which I would be able to do. My neighbors wouldn't like it. It'd be a statement of Bob's Big Boy, right? I mean, I'm fully able to do that. But
Sorry, Craig, when I whacked out of my driveway, I hit your big boy.
Where'd the big boy go? So the point is that on your private property, the government can't step in unless it's obscene, right?
Correct.
So I mean, if Bob's Big Boy is doing something nefarious with Jack in the Box, then at that point you could probably think it's obscene. If it's obscene,
Or Wendy's, from Wendy's.
But by and large, on your private property, you can do what you like. But when it comes to public property, there are people saying, look, man, just so you know, the guy thought he was in Japan. He called everybody Indians. He never backed off that statement. And then on top of that, he tortured people and killed people randomly. So do we really want to spend public money on this? And the answer could be arguably. I mean, there's some people say, look, I don't care. I love Columbus. In Berkeley, we celebrate Indigenous Peoples Day. But from a legal perspective, there's a point, which is, hey, man, because my tax-paying dollars are going to this, let's look at the history. And legally speaking, there could be a challenge to having that on public property based upon a historical discussion, which should be had.
Correct.
I think the First Amendment is great, and it allows that discussion. Now, you can argue both sides, and the best argument should win. So Joe Piscopo steps in, said, hey, if Al Franken's going to be responsible for public policy and the guy from The Apprentice is, why can't I step in? And says,
throw my hat in the ring.
Let's put up Joe DiMaggio, Joltin' Joe, right?
Mr. Coffee.
Yeah, and he was actually married to Marilyn Monroe.
Correct.
Yep.
He was. And he did a lot for Italian Americans, especially in New York when he was at his height there for the Yankees. And that's the point that Piscopo is trying to make is, Joe DiMaggio was a local New York hero. If we're going to take down Columbus, let's put someone that did actually a lot for this community and a lot for this for the city and for the Italian Americans.
Hey, can you meet his record, man? The Yankee Clipper?
No, 56 games hitting streak. That is pretty much impossible. That's a record that will never be touched, especially modern day baseball with film and everything. It'll never happen.
Unless they come up with a new performance-enhancing drug that's not detectable.
Well, even on that, guys, you're just not gonna. No one's ever even gotten close to that. It's never gonna happen. It's never gonna happen. But even though it came from Joe Piscopo, it's a warranted idea. If they're going to take down an Italian American, an Italian hero, quote unquote, put up a real Italian American hero. That's the only point he was trying to make.
Now, would you put the statue up with him and a cup of coffee?
No.
Mr. Coffee, come on.
It'd be the swing.
And maybe right next to Marilyn Monroe with that famous picture of her skirt being blown up.
Well, they wanted to put up a statue of DiMaggio when he was living, and he said no. He didn't believe in monuments.
Yeah, they stud.
He didn't believe in monuments for the living. So at the time, he's like, no, please don't. If you're going to do that, please wait till I've passed. And he's been dead for a while now. So it's a valid request, I think.
Well, they've already got a statue of a modern Italian up in the City of Brotherly Love. There's the Rocky statue.
That is correct. But this is New York we're talking about here.
Okay.
So, yeah, I think that's a good idea. And that's an interesting way to approach it. And that pretty much, unless you're a Red Sox fan, not controversial.
That is correct, yes. His brother played for the Red Sox, though. So
really?
They don't hate DiMaggio too much. Yeah,
How do you know all this stuff, man?
You know me. I'm a baseball nut, man.
Yeah, you are a baseball nut.
Hey, have you bedazzled that bat yet?
I have not, no.
Okay. How about your glove?
No bedazzling.
All right, let's go from somebody who did not want to engage in hubris to one who constantly engages in
exact
hubris.
opposite.
So Joe DiMaggio to Kanye West. So Kanye West, he was performing the Life of Pablo, or St. Pablo tour, supporting the Life of Pablo, I think was his. And he was basically trying to equate his artistic genius with Pablo Picasso, which is like, dude. I spent a lot of time in Catalonia checking out Picasso. And again, that's hubris. So he was performing in Sacramento on this stage that was above the crowd at Golden One. It's kind of cool, interesting. And, to his credit, the guy does have some kind of artistic leanings that are pretty interesting. But by and large, I just don't like him because I think he overstates his ability, and he's engaged in hyperbolic hubris in my mind. So anyway, he basically, I think his wife, Kim Kardashian, was being robbed in Paris. He had to stop the concert, and then he canceled a bunch of other tour dates as a result of what he said was psychological issues that were medical in nature. So what these performers do is they buy a contract. Basically, that's all it is an insurance policy with Lloyd's of London. Say, hey, look, in the event that an act of God happens, which is I fall off the stage or I have a mental breakdown, which is something I can't control or anticipate, I want to be insured for the money I would have made during those tour dates that I missed as a result of that kind of divine intervention, so to speak. Lloyd's of London says, guess what? There are exclusions in this contract. And the article said it was a counterclaim. It's not. It's an affirmative defense to the contract to say, look, you're supposed to tell us about your pre-existing medical conditions, excessive alcohol use, possession of illegal drugs, and prescription drug use. So this comes in a lot if you're signing up for health insurance, right? And you type don't smoke and all this other stuff, and then you go on Facebook and you're on Vegas drinking a martini, smoking a cigarette. then, if you have a major health problem and then your insurance company gets a hold of that, then they can say, look, you weren't honest with us. And we took a risk with you based upon certain information which would affect the chance that we would have to pay out. And you were not honest, therefore we're voiding the contract. And that's what Lloyd's of London is saying.
Yeah, they're saying, well, he sued them for breach of contract and breach of the good faith and fair dealing, saying you guys didn't honor your side of the contract. And Lloyd's was smart enough to say, well, that may be so, but there seems to be some irregularities here. With supposed marijuana use, because one of the things, one of the exclusions under the contract is possession of illegal drugs.
Correct.
And in most of all of the country under federal law, that is an illegal drug. And then pre-existing medical conditions, excessive alcohol use if he's out partying too much, and then lies or claims he has a mental breakdown. Right. And let's say he does have one, but he also has these other problems going on that he didn't divulge to Lloyd's at the time. Even if he did have a mental breakdown, that he may have breached the contract ab initio from the beginning by not relaying to Lloyd's all those problems he may have had, so they could have properly underwrote it and maybe had a different premium on it. So,
I agree. I mean, that's a good. You're right on everything, Ed, and especially Lloyd's of London.
Of course, I am.
I mean, Lloyd's
it's just shady lawyers killing it this morning.
Now, this is what Lloyd's of London does, so it's not like they're going to want to have the reputation of not paying out on insurance premiums. So there's probably something there that they're.
Well, think about it. It's exactly what you were talking about a minute ago, Craig, with regard to autonomous cars. You're going to look at the driver, the neighborhood, the vehicle being used, and everything. And that's how an
Hopefully you don't have a video of your test driving that Tesla.
My Tesla driving was awesome, by the way.
Dude, you actually tried to override the autopilot.
That's right. So, no, but these are all the variables you have to take into account when you determine what the premium's going to be. And when you do a contract like this, you have to have all the information up front so you can say, hey, we're going to charge you $1 million or we're going to charge you $10 million for this premium. And their argument is you did disclose all this to us, so there was never a contract. There was never a meeting of the minds.
Correct.
No, it's about assessing risk. And they say, look, man, okay, this is basically a bet. We're betting that you, Kanye West, with all the information that you give us, are not going to have a problem. So we're going to take $200,000 in premiums from you, and we're betting we're not going to have to pay you.
Yep.
And Kanye goes, I'm going to bet that I'm going to have a problem, so that's why I'm giving you $200,000, right?
And
so that's the
lo
bet.
and behold, I had it.
But when you make the bet, then you have to disclose certain information, so the bet is based upon foundational material information that allows each side to assess the risk. And with Kanye West, if he did not disclose these pre-existing medical conditions, drug use, etc., he ain't going to win.
Nope.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of people, we've all been out on the golf course playing golf, and you'll get to the par 3 and it says, hey, hole-in-one, win a car. Well, they put an insurance contract out on that. It runs about $150, $200. My dad used to set these tournaments up, and I go, well, how do you guys risk for that? He goes, we just buy a contract because there's so many bad golfers out there. Nobody's ever going to hit it.
And if someone does, you're
if
covered.
They do, you're covered. You got the contract.
Exactly.
All right, so when we come back, we'll transition from Kanye West and Lloyd's of London to professional wrestling in Mexico City and Guapa Estrella takes out Rosemary to the horror of the other participants. We'll do that after the break. Edward Shady, Tim Hodson with me, Craig Ashton, on All Things Legal. All right, we're back. This is Craig Ashton. You find yourself basically equidistant from the beginning to the end of a show called All Things Legal. Curious personal injury attorneys distilling topical events into a legal essence. If you want to put a face to a voice, a wisecrack,
or if you don't,
an intellectual thought to a smile, go to ashtonandprice.com. Go to our Facebook page, Ashton and Price LLP. And, go ahead and like us if you like, because the more likes we get, then the more we understand that we're doing our job and we're entertaining and informing you. And also it kind of gives us a sense about how many people are listening. We think it's about 12 million.
Yeah, in my head it's 12 million.
That's what I heard. That's what my last number was.
The listening audience is huge.
Huge.
There's no larger listening audience ever in the history of radio.
The biggest ever.
Yep, there we go.
The greatest, smartest.
All right, so we all were wondering whether or not professional wrestling was real. And one of the reasons, because you just never know. I mean, there's just that inkling in the back of your mind that maybe this is real. And, if you watch some of the people that watch it, I mean, they really invest in this.
What are you talking about Israel?
Professional wrestling.
Oh, 2 words. Israel, not Israel.
All right, Ed. I am the host. Let me keep it in this direction. You're leaving the country. You may not be able to come back. So
Banned
the reason that
Tesla, banned from America.
the reason that professional wrestling is not real is you can't bet on it in Vegas. Period. End of story. I mean, if it was real, then you could bet on it because
Bet on everything.
you could bet on it in England. I mean, in London. I mean, they bet on everything there. So the idea is that you can't bet on wrestling. Tells you pretty much it's not real, but leave it to Sexy Star, in Spanish, be guapa estrella. She was appearing in Lucha Underground, and she's accused of purposely injuring an opponent during a four-way women's match at the Reina de Reinas Championship on Saturday of last week. It was a Triple Mania 25. So they got 24 of these under their belt before this crazy thing.
Hey, it's crazy. It's a 4-way match at Triple Mania.
So
it's incongruent.
That's a lot of numbers.
Yeah, sexy. That's funny, actually. So, yeah, it should be Quadruple Mania, right?
Yeah, it should be.
But after what Sexy Star did to Rosemary, there was only 3 left, right?
That is true.
So Sexy Star basically, for some reason, had a bit of a problem with Rosemary, and Lady Shani and Ayako Hamada looked on in horror as Rosemary went off, Sexy Star went off script and basically started yanking on Rosemary's arm and then put her in an arm bar at the end of the match, and she was tapping out, and the referee was acknowledging it, and Sexy Star wouldn't let go. Then there was a couple tweets which were actually I thought were pretty great. Sending love to my girl. We are Rosemary. The whole wrestling world is behind you! ! No room for bullies in this business. Yeah, there is. That's what professional wrestling's all about.
That's all it is bullying.
What was the Undertaker, man? He was a bully.
Absolutely.
Really?
When Hulk Hogan went kind of rogue, he was a bully.
I thought that his best match
The
was when he
Iron
beat
Sheik.
up Rocky.
The Iron Sheik was a bully.
How do you know all these names?
Man,
you
you
watch
know
this on Saturday?
Growing up, in the 70s, there wasn't. I had Masterpiece Theater. I love to watch Firing Line.
And then wrestling.
Yeah, you had to balance it out. Firing Line, Cyrano de
True.
Bergerac, a little bit of a McLaughlin group as you got older. You'd always get a
Nightline.
lot of good Masterpiece Theater, because on Sundays PBS. So I watched.
You balance out like Ted Koppel on Nightline with WrestleMania. I like it.
Yeah, when everybody else was going out doing things on Sunday, I'd be at home watching PBS and Even Lenoir and 13 episodes of Brides Are Revisited. But then you'd have to mix it in with some good wrestling. I mean,
Andre the Giant.
No, but what I think we have here,
Andre the Giant, he was great.
because it's not
He was a
really
bully too.
because it's not really a sport, and this is more of a routine or a production. The assumption of the risk probably wouldn't apply, and we have a battery because she exceeded and went past consensual act that was going to be permitted.
Well, thank you for
Absolutely.
bringing it back to the legal issues.
I had to.
Because we were going into fake law, now we're going into the real stuff. So basically, you're right. When you enter into this,
That's 2 for 2.
this interaction basically is a contract, because they already have a script in advance as to how the interaction is going to go,
Correct.
what role they're going to play, and ultimately that's based upon a contract. I'm going to pay you for acting this certain way. It would be like somebody being in a play, Hamlet, and then deciding midway to take a baseball bat to Hamlet, right?
Or just use a real sword instead of a.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, or even better, right? You meet up with the jury before trial. Go, we're going to put this whole thing on, but you're coming back with a $1 billion verdict.
This is what you will be doing.
This is what you will be doing.
So this is basically a play based upon contract. There is an assumption of the risk within the confines of the roles that are spelled
Yeah,
out
'cause it's still
in
physical
writing.
no matter what.
And then you're right. And once she goes beyond the roles that are stated, then the assumption of the risk issues, because you could be doing that role and still get injured, which you assume that risk.
Absolutely.
But if you're now going rogue, basically I think she scarred Lady Shani for life after watching this, right?
I think so.
If
Sounds like these people are very
Rosemary may be
affected.
out.
These
for
people
good.
are very affected.
There's going to be no Triple Mania 26 for Rosemary, I don't think.
No, I don't believe so.
They should have had all the Spice Girls: rosemary, coriander, thyme, cinnamon.
We're going to miss you, Ed. I'm going to turn on CNN. There'll be some unrest in Amsterdam, London, and Rome.
Just watch for the silver hair.
Exactly, right.
The beacon of white. What's it?
We're going to put a chip in you. follow Ed Shady as he puts on his lederhosen and
Where in the world is Ed
spreads
Shady?
the wit.
It's like, where's Waldo?
Or like Carmen Sandiego.
So anyway, so the idea is that this would now be an assault and battery, which is harmful or offensive contact. If she wanted to sue, Mexican law would apply because it's in Mexico City, and then she'd be entitled to the damages that they're allowed for in Mexico. I don't think this would go too far, but at the end of the day, from a purely practical perspective, based upon California common laws that's applied, she'd be entitled to a law of tort and also potentially criminally there could be criminal prosecution for assault and battery. This is what you don't want to hear from your wife while you're in Rome, which was a quote from Rosemary to Sexy Star. Let me be perfectly clear. If you take liberties with someone's body when they're giving it to you and trusting to keep them safe, you're not tough. You're an a-hole. So I think that's probably pretty true.
Sums it up.
Yep, and that's what happens when pro wrestling becomes real.
For the first time ever.
All right, so Paul Anka, right? So he had Puppy Love, which was made famous, I think, by Donny Osmond. You don't know who that is, right?
I know who Donny Osmond is, but this is way beyond my age.
I think the only way that most people your age know the Osmonds is from Marie Osmond.
Correct.
And she somehow always loses 50 pounds every 3 months.
It's her and Oprah on that same train, man. It's a good money train, that's for sure.
I mean,
they keep getting endorsements.
And she looks great. She obviously loses the weight. She gets paid a lot.
And she just binges on Oreos or something.
She
Goes
does.
right back.
Hey, Mama's got to pay the bills.
Time to lose some weight again.
Baskin Robbins, let's go. So he put your head on my shoulder. I caught mommy kissing Santa Claus underneath the mistletoe last night, right? Yeah. So now it was like,
What's that code for?
I don't know. It's not Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds. I don't think.
No, no, it's not.
So anyway, Paul Anka's got a contract with a charity called Life, which is run by the widow of National Enquirer founder Generoso Pope. And they moved the event from Mar-a-Lago in December to Breakers on January 5th. So Paul Anka's got a contract. He's already been paid a deposit, and he set aside that date. So he says, hey, man, I'm going to Europe with the family. I ain't giving you the money back. I set aside that time. And so the only thing that Paul Anka has to do, he's got a duty to mitigate his damages.
Correct.
So at this point, if Paul Anka is offered another gig, then at that point, that money, if he gets $75,000 for that gig, then he should have to give that money back.
Yeah, if he gets another gig for December 2nd, the day he was contracted for. Correct.
No, he's going next week. He's meeting me in Europe.
Is
That's
that
why
what
he's
he's-
going. Yeah, we're hooking up.
All right. Well, he's going to be out of the country then.
So, yeah, I mean, it'll be a time to cry, right?
If I run into him, we'll be. I don't want to see
if
him.
you could sing Summer's Gone, or you can have a steel guitar and a glass of wine.
Well, I didn't get to read the article because this is one of the ones you popped on us, but does it say that it's a non-refundable deposit? Was that the whole point of it?
Yeah, that was the idea. Is
Yeah.
he received a deposit of $75,000. So if it's not refundable, then that's a contract.
Correct.
And then the problem for him is that it's not really good PR.
No.
Well, the non-refundable is
Especially
if
as a
they
charity, right?
cancel on him, then he keeps the money. It's not that he can unilaterally cancel and keep
Right.
the money. Otherwise, what's the point of having a non-refundable contract? Anybody would take the money and say, I'm going to cancel and keep it and have no downside.
There is a
Correct.
pretty. I mean, within the confines of they're moving the charity from Mar-a-Lago because it indirectly benefits Donald Trump, who suggested that people that support the KKK and support neo-Nazis are good people. There's some good people there, and that they're good people on both sides. At that point, I mean, that creates an issue of ethical equivalence, right? Moral equivalence that nobody wants to be associated with, that wants to be in the public eye. I mean, unless you're David Duke. And then on top of that, it's for charity. So, I mean, he's taking $75,000 and not performing
From charity.
for a good reason because of the equation with KKK and people protesting against racism. And then he's taking money from a charity to go hang out with his family in Europe. Right on. I mean, he's obviously probably he might have some financial issues. There are performers his age that do.
Hey, 75,000 is 75,000 no matter what.
Yeah, so I mean, from a purely
Yeah.
contractual perspective, I think he's probably on very solid footing if
Yeah.
it's not refundable. From a PR perspective, probably not on the best footing.
Oh, I think he's on good footing anywhere in this, actually.
Do you? Okay, explain.
Well, he, number one, they pay him $75,000, give him $75,000 to show up on December 2nd or whatever day it is. It really makes no difference to me. And then he decides unilaterally that this isn't going to work for me because there might be a misassociation. So I'm going to not show up, and I'm going to keep the money, and I'm going to prevent the charity, number one, from getting that money you gave me, because now they're going to have to take more money, pay somebody else to fill that gig, which is less money going to the people that actually need it, not him, because he can't be in too bad of a financial stretch because he is going to be going to Europe and taking a nice
Good point.
vacation. It paints him in a very bad light. If he would have said refunded the money and said I'm stepping away from it, totally different outcome. But in this instance, he can't cry poor and then take a vacation. And 2, unilaterally breach the contract when that may not be a term in the contract.
But if they move the date on him like they did.
And then, he could have even got up there and just said, I'm going to start this concert, and first I want to put it very, very clear. Anybody associated with that mob violence down there, those Nazis, those racists, those white supremacists, get the hell out of my country, and let's get on with the show. But he didn't do that. He decided to just take the money and go on vacation.
Yeah, so I mean, from a purely contractual perspective, I'd have to see the contract to see what how ironclad the issue is pertaining to non-refundable. I mean, for instance, if Hurricane Harvey hits Mar-a-Lago, equivalent of it on January or whatever, December 2nd,
right?
Then at that point, he probably should have to give the money back. But it really depends what the contract says.
It's all in the language of the contract, exactly.
So from a purely contractual perspective, based upon what we know, he is purely within his legal rights to keep the money. From a PR perspective, I don't know if it's the best choice, but at the end of the day, $75,000, $75,000.
Yes, it is. It's a lot of money.
It's almost the opposite of Kanye West.
Yes,
Kanye West canceled and wants money. He's canceled and keeping the money. Polar opposites.
He got the money first. He learned his lesson.
He's going to look, and Kanye's Paul Anka's going to look, young man. This is the way the old bulls do it. You get the money up front.
You get the money first.
Exactly. Yeah. Smoking too much pot there, bro. All right. So when we come back, we're going to go ahead and break down the pricing for insurance for autonomous vehicles, talk about our experience driving a Tesla, and talk about the visceral reaction that I got on Facebook. The First Amendment protects your right to basically pile on, but in my off time, I don't want to debate. I want to go home, and watch some sports. All right, this is Craig Ashton. The show is All Things Legal. Stay with us. All right, we're back. This is Craig Ashton. The show is All Things Legal. Curious personal injury attorneys distilling topical events to the legal essence. If Bill Maher and Ann Coulter had a radio love child, we'd give us Tim Hodson.
I don't.
See, he's speechless. It's awesome.
No, I don't want anything to do with Ann Coulter at all after her comments a couple days ago.
It's okay. We'll put you up for adoption.
No,
Yeah,
she's good.
You're going to be 6'7" because she's 6'1".
Sure. No, it doesn't matter. No.
But Bill Maher's kind of short. You'll be funny and angry.
Ooh, I'm already angry.
And the reason we bring that up is my formative years were spent in the San Francisco Bay Area. I graduated from UC Berkeley. Ed is from Orange County. Got his life sensibilities from behind the orange curtain.
That's right.
So that's why you see a dichotomous approach to the life questions that we address on this show. But usually that dichotomous approach leads to the confluence of a welcome outcome.
There's a lot of SAT words there.
Oh, why? We have a confluence just up the road here.
Yes, we do.
That's right. Where the Sacramento River and the American River meet. The confluence.
Speaking of confluence, you're flying Norwegian Air out of Oakland, based out of Ireland, with a Asian crew.
That's the hope.
That is amalgamation. That is a confluence.
It's a motley crew, one might even say.
And then so you're basically flying out of Oakland. You land somewhere in
Denmark first.
Denmark.
For a little layover, and then right down into Amsterdam.
And then into Amsterdam.
On the houseboat, right?
The houseboat in
Sweet.
Amsterdam for 4 nights, and then off to Rome.
Awesome,
so you did an air barge and barge, right?
I'm going to be going planes, trains, and automobiles, because I also got a train trip planned in the middle.
Very nice. Great movie.
Yeah, stick to the script. Do not pull a guapa estrella.
I mean, the funniest train ride I was ever on. If you got a minute for this. So we ferry a boat.
It's not my show, man.
So
I'm just here to direct the traffic.
So back in college, me and my roommate, we helped ferry a boat down from Dana Point down to San Diego. And we're going to take the Amtrak back up the coast here in Southern California. So we're taking it up. We're at the back. It's like at night. We're drinking some beer. And then all of a sudden, this guy and his group go, "Hey, why isn't the train stopping?" And we're right there where the surf meets the turf. Del Mar.
The Sizzler.
Yeah, the Sizzler. And the conductor goes, "Well, the train doesn't stop on this run coming up here." And the guy goes, "That's where my car is." So he yanks the emergency cord. And the train comes to a stop maybe about 200 yards, 300 yards past the train station. And he starts yelling, "You can't do that. You can't do it." The guy yells the F word back at the conductor with his 3 buddies, and they open the door and they jump off into the bushes and start running down the tracks. Me and my buddy Greg are just looking on. This is awesome.
That's pretty funny.
Do they even have those emergency stop things anymore in trains?
I have no idea.
Probably
But this
not,
guy reached
man.
up and
Yeah.
grabbed the cord and stopped the train.
It's out of a cartoon.
It's called a shady rule.
He's all, "It's a felony offense." I'm all, whatever. It wasn't me. We're in the back watching.
That was back before video, so you can get away with that kind of behavior. But now,
True. True. People are still using pagers.
All right, so basically, I watched an inconvenient sequel, the Al Gore movie, and the thing is that the whole
I was going to watch it, but it was at an inconvenient time.
the whole premise of that movie is like, look, man, if you don't believe in climate change or global warming, that ship has sailed. You're either on board or you're not. But I'm not here to convince you. This is the message for the movie. What I am here to say is that solar and wind are becoming so inexpensive and ubiquitous at this point that it's going to be less expensive for you to have your electricity generated by wind and solar going forward based upon the technological advances than it is with carbon, based fuel, right? And so even people in Texas, I mean, this small town in Texas is the most conservative Trump-supporting city in all of Texas. They're completely all green, and they didn't do it because they love Al Gore. They did it because it saves money for their taxpayers in that city and county, and they're fully 100% all electric and solar, period, based upon, wind and solar. So the idea is that forget about climate change. If you don't believe in that, we're not here to convince you anymore. That's up to you, Go with God on that one. But, hey, we all like to save money.
Vaya con Dios.
And we all like clean air, right? So, I mean, there's no downside to clean air, and there's no downside to saving money. So after watching it, I go, you know what? I want to check out a Tesla just to see what it's like. And I had no idea, right? And I went out with my girlfriend, Tanya, and we got into one of those X3s, and it's their SUV. And this car actually just beat a Lamborghini in a quarter-mile test by half a second. A Lamborghini, $500,000 Lamborghini. It goes 0 to 60 in 2.6 seconds with its called the Ludicrous package. It is
Ludicrous speed.
100% zero emission. The doors open automatically when you get to them. They close. You can change the suspension if let's say your driveway's steep, and then the car actually will GPS at exact location. Every time you get to it, it'll change the suspension automatically. You have a rear camera that can see all the blind spots. When you're driving on the road, you can hit, when you're on the freeway, 7, 6, 5, 2, 3, 2, 1, car length difference between the car in front of you, and it'll maintain that automatically. When you go to switch lanes, after you put in cruise control, you just hit the turn signal. It'll change lanes for you. And so you can go all the way to Reno. The guy who's doing the test drive has gone all the way to Reno, all the way to Southern California on the freeways without even touching the steering wheel ever. It basically, the seats are all made out of plants, not animals. And the car, to me, I just had no idea that the way that they thought of all these things. It was so beautifully designed. It's made in the United States of America. We're employing people in Fremont, and then we got people in Reno, right outside of Reno, doing the
Well, I think
battery
that Fremont
technology.
factory is one of the biggest factories in the United States.
And it turns out that the Sacramento area out in Loomis, they're one of the biggest, if not the biggest, distributor of Teslas in the country. I had no idea how much of a following Tesla had, but I didn't really know anything about the car. I've had a Porsche Turbo Carrera, I've got a Range Rovers, I've had S-Class Mercedes. That's some nice cars in my life. When I got in that thing, it was like going from the Flintstones to the Jetsons. I mean, it was like totally different transportation device. It blew me away. It's got 50-50 weight distribution. The center of gravity is super low because it's all in the battery. Because I get in my Range Rover and I was driving it, it's like driving a boat because the center of gravity is where the engine is.
Especially after getting a Tesla.
In the Tesla, it's low, and then you got those Falcon wings in the back. It is just absolutely sweet. And the cool thing is that the 3 class is $37,000. You get a $10,000 rebate. And if you want to lease that, you can lease it for $200 a month, maybe $300 a month. And you will save that in gas, and it's basically you're driving that car for free. And you're doing something that is a net benefit to our economy in California, and plus it's zero emission in terms of CO2. So it seemed like a no-brainer for me. And the cool thing is with Tesla, you just go online, you build your car, this is the rims I want, this is what I want. You type in your social security number. They pre-approve you for your lease. When you go out there and do the test drive, the car gets delivered in about 3 or 4 weeks. It's kind of like it's as easy as going on Amazon for a car, and they're unbelievably switched on people. So the other benefit now that we're looking at is that the autonomous cars, because they're going to be much safer. I mean, there was, I think, 15,000 deaths in the United States last year that it was measured. And 94% of those could be avoided if you had autonomous vehicles. So what happens is Ford's coming out with a fully autonomous vehicle. Google's doing the same thing.
Not for a while. It says they're coming out the year 20,000,
Yeah,
121.
that was a typo. But there was 35,000 people killed in the United States.
18,000 years.
35,000 people were killed in the United States in 2015, and 94% of those were human error, so they could have been avoided. So that would have saved about 30,000 lives with autonomous vehicles. So what happens is insurance is risk-based, as we found out with Kanye West, and it's really about where you live, what your driving record is. Even your credit history can make a difference.
Yep.
And then what kind of car you drive. If you're driving a Yugo, it's not going to be that expensive. You're driving a Ferrari, it's going to be expensive. Do you live in a high crime area or a low crime area? And then what your driving record is. Once you get an autonomous vehicle where it's no longer your driving record, it's really about the safety record of the car and then how much that car costs. Those are the only two variables. And if the risk factor, when State Farm and Geico and all of them assess the risk, your insurance is going to go down by 90% in an autonomous vehicle.
If they're even, yeah, I mean, the whole insurance industry is going to have to figure something out.
So do yourself a favor. You can call Tesla, go online, get a test drive, just check out the technology. To me, I'm not a real big engineering tech person. I'm not. My brother understands apps. I don't get it. But when I got in that car, man, I got it immediately, and it blew me away. It was like an absolute revelation in technology. And I'm not one of those big, even though George Washington is my uncle, I'm not a big USA guy. But after I got out of that car, I go, USA. That was pretty cool. Check out a Tesla. We're done with the show. Ed, you'll be here tomorrow.
Yes.
Tim, you're not. I'll see you on next Thursday.
Yes,
so
yes.
join us, same bat time, same bat channel. And you can listen to us on Sports 1140 on Saturdays. This show will be replayed between 10 and 11. Thank you very much for joining us, and see us tomorrow. Same bad time, same bad channel.
You've been listening to the All Things Legal Show with your host, Craig Ashton. For more information or to download the latest podcast, go to ashtonandprice.com or call 916-786-7788.